Well, thank you, Marcel, very much for joining this Trust Talks. We had different experts of different fields of expertise from different countries. And I'm very happy to have you also on the board. And today I hope we can discuss youth. Where is the youth in the crisis of trust that we are discussing? We used to think that and to say that the youth is the future. So what is your opinion? Can we trust the future to youth? Is youth trusting the future, and where is the youth overall?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a great pleasure to have this conversation. I don't know if I am the only one from Moldova that you're interviewing, but I will try to do my best to uh, get the feeling of Moldovan people to your side. Well, you mentioned youth is the future. Well, it's debatable. You know, I see youth as the present and the past, and also the future, because youth, for me, I associate with constant changes, and not something that can be put, you know, in boundaries. For me, youth is something like innovation, constantly changing and innovating in different aspects of life, because maybe the spirit of rebellion that youth still has, this thing that they do not feel obliged to have this stability in their life. They're more free to take risks, so that makes youth as the perfect example of good innovators. They have nothing to lose, or maybe that's how I feel it is. And when we talk about trust in youth, or trusting youth between themselves, or trusting of youth in public institutions, we have to see, well, in our case, how it affected this relationship between youth and institutions, how it was affected by our cultural background, our historical background, because even me, I wasn't born in the USSR period, but my parents were, and the education I got from them, it still has this, I say this history, or this concept that everything should be in their place. You have to have this small job that you do, and there will always be an institution there, and always somebody can answer your question, and you should do this and you should do that. But now I am a parent now, and I see that it's a different mentality that I try to promote to my children. But still, I have this background that is pushing me. You know, it's influencing me how I transpose this knowledge I have and this education to my children. But talking about how people, or the youth, like 12 years old, 14 years old, 18 years old, work with institutions, it's hard to see an relationship of trust between them. Mostly, I think, because youth is not interested in getting involved in the decision-making process at any level, or at least that's how things are in Moldova right now. It might be because there are more interesting things to do for them. They have different interest groups. They see life from a different perspective than we do. They don't have this, as I mentioned before, this need everything to be put in boundaries, and there is a lack of interest from their part. Well, I work for a public institution, and I do this because maybe I'm not young no more. I'm not a young person anymore. But from my relationship with public institutions, I felt that if you want to do something, if you want to improve something, you have to get involved in that process and you have to improve it by yourself. I see that young people in 2020, 2021 are not taking this path anymore. They're looking into more opportunities in different fields. They don't see the civic sector and the public sector as connected as much as I did in my time, let's say like that. But maybe because we stopped working in this area a long time ago. Maybe we stopped promoting the idea that youth should get involved more and more in improving the life of others from a central position. Maybe that's what we should consider in the future, because right now youth in Moldova, it's not interested in having any relationship with state institution. There is no trust between what the government does, what the public authority does, and maybe we skipped a step that we should take a long time ago.
You know, it's very interesting, and maybe it's the actual change of culture of relations between the society and the government and the state, because I don't have big experience of relations with youth. I don't know much about current youth because my kids are very young, and I'm like already not very the youngest part of the youth, let's say. But I share what you are saying, and I think our generation, the children of non-Soviet children of Soviet parents, we kind of got these independent countries, and we got so much information about what we want to our countries to look like. And because like many trainings came after the collapse of the Soviet, many theories, many books, everything, and we kind of grew up with this vision of creating the state that our parents didn't have, but they wanted, and we also see what we want. And my generation in Armenia also were involved very much in CSOs, in NGOs, in public movements, in creating better state. But the youth, I can theoretically understand now that they don't want to take this burden. They got some okay state where they can feel free. Their parents are kind of okay. They do their own work in, I don't know, creating their state or whatever they are. But this can be even better, because what our generation was doing, we were just like general activists, just working for any better input. While the younger generation, I hope they can be more maybe not egoistic, but groupoistic, if we can say that, and like really present their own interest of their group, their small niche, and try to make it better. I mean, maybe they will be insufficient with their salaries and they will try to fight for their own salaries. Or I don't know, maybe they don't like how the theaters are and they will make cultural changes, or like, but fight for their own egoistic interests. But this is just a theoretical like insights, but maybe the changes of their input will be just different.
You know, there was a saying that hard times create strong men or strong people or strong women, you know, and maybe the young people right now are living in their comfort zone because they, well, at least in Moldova, we are kind of in between countries. We are not a developed country, we're not a underdeveloped country, we're right in the middle. But this middle is it's a comfort zone where they have access to really different opportunities in all kinds of fields. Like people are pumping from outside, are pumping opportunities to Moldovan people and to youth specifically, and they feel like they have access to everything. They're mostly consumers now, as I see it. They don't feel this need to produce. They are mostly a consuming group of people. So maybe this is an issue. Well, if it's not an issue now, it will become an issue later. That's for sure.
Okay, and what do you think? What knowledge should we transfer to younger generation, and or how we should change the public institutions to make the relations between growing generation and public institutions more trustworthy?
Yeah, well, now I will speak as from my point of view as a professional public servant in the field of education. We are working with the age group of 14 till 35 that we consider young people. Before that, we trust our kids, our children to the public school system, to the public institution, to the formal educational system. And I think there is a really big gap, because if you start promoting your programs that try to make young people more socially active, that you try to make him work in the volunteering field, you try to make him participate in the decision-making process, it's already too late. You skip a full step of this of his development. So maybe we should look first how we promote our ideas and how we promote this process of educating. What does it mean to be a good citizen in a younger group? Maybe 6 years old, 7 years old. We have to think that when we started working with young people from 14, well, 14 was the norm then in the Republic of Moldova. Now, people at 14 years old, they're already grown up. They're already matured, and it's hard to intervene there. So I think what we should do now is try to see how the education system, the formal education system works, and try to make it more flexible and promote new programs and new curriculums and new ways of working with young people that will make them socially active, that make them feel themselves as part of a group, not as individuals. Well, that's one of the direction I think it's necessary to work in Moldova. Another thing is we should really put an accent on how do you educate your children, on working with parents, with young parents, because being a very small country, there is a huge difference how is life in the capital of Moldova and how is life in other cities or the rural areas. So we have to see how we can implement our policies at the national level, working with every young people and young parents in various areas of Moldova, but we have to do it nationally. We cannot promote what we do in just the capital because there are most people here, and try to work, as I mentioned, with this with the parents, because the education starts in the school process. It starts at 6 years old, but from 1 to 6 we have this notion of you have to have your 6 years education from home. So this is the most difficult part, because it's not done in an institution, it's done at home. You cannot control how everybody is educating their children, but you can influence and you can promote what does a good education for our children mean to the parents. You have to raise good parents. And that's another area what we should consider. It's in this digital area, people are mostly doing giving the education of their children to the social media, to the mass media, to the television. People are like, go watch TV, let me do my work, and somewhere along the way we lose the connection between the members of the same family, and this is a terrible situation. This is the worst what can happen, that if the children does not get the education they need from their parents, because you already have this bond. It's if you're working in a school with a child, you have to build trust between the teacher and the child. But if you are working at home, the trust is already there. It's a natural thing. So we should promote how young parents and how parents at any age educate their children. This is another direction that I feel we haven't given enough attention in Moldova, and our policies should mention that, or should promote that.
Thank you very much, Marcel. And I have a question that maybe it's personal, but it can be based on your own experience. So what are the values or attitude that you try to grow in your own children? And the second part of the question, how much those values and attitudes are mirrored in the policies, state educational policies? Like maybe to name 3 or 4 core values or attitudes or skills that you expect your kids to learn.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, I know, and you need to think, so take your time to think.
It's a hard one because I had a really long discussion with my wife as before we had children, how I feel we should raise our children and how she felt, because she mostly promoted that this family bond, that you have to keep everything. We are a group and we identify as a group with near other groups. Well, the way I see it, it's not the family that represents a group. It's a community that you should be part of. That's what you should take into consideration, because it's a good thing to try to do what's best for your family, but I think it's a great thing to try to do your best for your community. I think that I try to promote in my family to give to my children. Well, I'm not really a big fan of individualism, so I always try to explain that you should always take the extra step when you want to help somebody, even if sometimes it's in your detriment, in your
at cost of your own interest.
Yeah, at cost of your own interest, and it doesn't really necessarily mean that you will obtain something for that, or that will give you something in the long term. It's just something that I feel it should be done. When I was a kid, there was a movie that really influenced me as a person. It was, I think it was called Pass It Forward. It was about a child. He was like 8 years old, and he had this system when you have to help 3 other people, but you have to really help, really do something really big for them. It wasn't necessary to be financial, but just something to try to change their life. And then those 3 other people have to do something for other 3 people. And it influenced me so much as a child that, well, that was 20 years ago. And it's still just from a movie that I saw on TV. I took that lesson, let's say it like that, and I still try to do it in my everyday life, and with my children I try to teach that to them. That's true.
Yeah,
you see
thank you very much.
How a simple movie, how a simple maybe post on social media, maybe something you see on the street can influence you and have this great influence on your future self.
Yeah, I know. I always caught myself being influenced from friend movie, like when friends are supporting each other, and it's the idea of friendship. And I think I really got in my life. I created great friend bond. I value and I try to teach the kids too, like solidarity, which is still about seeing beyond your own self. Yeah, and do you think the public policy of education reflects these values that you need? Does it promote the values that you promoted in your kids?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, we already work, and we're talking about youth, we already work with young people that I feel that it's a little bit too late to try to promote this kind of values. Our intervention should be at a much younger age. And right now, the public educational system, it doesn't take into consideration this aspect. The public educational system is rigid. It's very, from hour to hour, you have classes, and in the classes you promote this and this, and well, you don't really promote, you teach, and you have to learn. And if you want to like make room for something to develop the character of the child, of the young people, we make another class for 45 minutes where the child should come and learn how to do something. It's not taking into consideration the aspect or the character of the young person. It doesn't take into consideration this bond that it should be created to promote these ideas. It's just about teaching and learning. And maybe with the big public education reform we are trying to do right now in Moldova, maybe this is something that is also, even now in 2021, when it is clear that the young people are going in a different direction that we thought about 10 years ago, still we don't make this contribution to the educational system. Still we believe that this is the right thing to do, and still we believe that teaching and learning in schools, it accomplishes everything that is needed for the young people of Moldova, and it's not right.
Yeah, I see what you say. Thank you, Marcel. Well, it's very interesting maybe to have just the end remarks, because even though I enjoy very much the conversation, we need to somehow also have a conclusion.
Yeah. Well, to have a conclusion, we haven't really spoke about how COVID influenced young people around the world, and also in Moldova. Our suicide rates among young people skyrocketed, and it surfaced a lot of problems, a lot of issues that weren't talked about before. Everybody knew about them, but nobody talked about them. So maybe the conclusion is that as long as we keep this dialogue alive, as long as we talk about some issues, as long as we put it on the table and try together to find some solutions, well, that's the way to go. As long as we do that, we will find a way to succeed. As if we put everything beneath the carpet and try to ignore issues and try to ignore the needs of young people, and their need to be part of the community, their need to socialize, their need to learn, their need to integrate in a group. If we ignore all of this, then when the social shocks arrive, we will find terrible results.
Yeah, right. And I started the conversation with the question, can we trust the youth? But right now I think that question maybe should state it, do we really know what youth wants, or how they live, what they live in? Yeah, well, I'm glad that at least we came to it in the end.
Well, yeah, this talk about trust took another direction, but where we fail is because we think that youth needs something, the youth needs this, and this is the priority the youth needs. And it's not always like that. The youth needs options, youth needs opportunities, youth needs to be supported, youth needs, this is a great pile of things that young people, not only in Moldova, around the world need. And if you provide all of this as a government, as a parliament, as any other public institution, then maybe the youth will trust you. If you do not provide this, if you do not cover this all aspects of what you need, then I don't think the trust will be there ever.
Yeah, right. So the government has much responsibilities towards the youth, even though we expect youth to take the burden of our future. It's not very fair.
It's not, and we have to be always flexible in working with you.
Thank you very much, Marcel. It was really very interesting, and I'm glad I also got to share my thoughts. You don't always get that during interviews. Thanks a lot.